Season 5 would begin the real lore of the save, so just forget everything that happened before. Despite that previous statement, the winter transfer window would not see any additions or departures. However, the season would start on a big high, winning the President's Cup against rival Shamrock Rovers 2-0, with goals from our Swedish duo Anderson and Muller. We also had the continuation of the Europa Conference League from last season, in which we finished top of the group. That led us to drawing the IRL winners of the Conference League, Roma, in the round of 16, and it was a stunning contest. In the first leg at the Olympic in front of 64,000 people, Salah would open the scoring after 2 minutes. Roma would respond quickly and score twice in quick succession through Reichel and Barco, who would score an absolute worldie. Anderson would respond for us with his own worldie, before Pagano made it 3-2 after only 26 minutes. We would finally level through Edwin Abaje, finding the back of the net in the 76th minute, but 5 minutes later, Roma restored the lead with a goal from Goes. That left the score 4-3 for us to overturn at home. However, it wouldn't be easy, with Origi one-upping our early start in the last game by scoring in the first minute. Our Swedish duo would score, however, to put the tie level, until Barco scored on the brink of half-time. The tie would only get worse, with Origi getting a second, and Garcia getting on the scoreline only a minute between each other, with the match finishing 4-2 and the tie finishing 8-5 to Roma. In consolation, Roma's manager would admit we were the better team, with his words of pity only serving as motivation for the team going forward. By the end of the competition, our own Edwin Anderson had finished top scorer, and Borussia Mönchengladbach won overall. Flipping over to the league, we had an electric start within our first 9 games, with big wins against Waterford, Sligo and Dundalk, but the icing on the cake was against Shamrock Rovers, in which Oscar Bob opened scoring after 7 minutes, before Nikolaj Muller and Salah would make it 3 before half-time. Just after play resumed, Bob would get his brace and Anderson would complete the scoring, to seal a thumping 5-0 victory against our bitter rivals. On the 10th match day of the season, we would see our first loss against Bohemia, with Muller's penalty only being a consolation. But we would respond by going on a 12-game unbeaten streak, which would last us until the summer, taking out Shelbourne, Galway, Derry and Waterford, to name a few, with the only splotch in our record being a draw against Shamrock Rovers, where Muller's goal was cancelled out by Cavanagh. In this time, we would have the EA Sports Cup, where we started with a win against Drogheda, before drawing Shamrock in the second, where we would stuff them again, with goals from Muller, Salah and another brace for Bob. We would draw them again in the Leinster Senior Cup, where Bob would open the scoring, smashing one past the keeper. Shamrock would respond through Neil Farrugia, who slotted one into the bottom corner. We would lead again, this time through Nikolaj Muller tapping one home to make it 2-1, going into the break. However, just after the restart, Farrugia would be played in again, and he put one past Sammy to even the scores. Muller would get a second through another tap-in within the 6-yard box, but Farrugia would go and score another goal, sealing his hat-trick, with all 3 being scored in the exact same way. I think this might be a reflection of my ability on this game. Thankfully, however, Bob would get his customary brace with a smashing header in the 94th minute, sending us through in clutch fashion. We would get UCD in the semis, who happened to be our feeder club, but I'll save you the details, and I'll just say we won. That set up a final against Shelbourne, in which it would take Nikolaj Muller 20 minutes to score a hat-trick. Emmerich would grab the 4th, and they would pull one back to Robertson, but Salah would strike an absolute beauty in the last minute of the game to seal our 2nd trophy of the season. Following lifting the trophy, we would make some transfers, including Sam Greenwood and Alex Kirk from Leeds, Samuel Edozie from Man City, now of Southampton of course, and Eduardo Pierozzi, I think that's how you say his name, from Alessandria, who would all force their way into the team. Due to our league win last year, during the summer we had Champions League playoffs, and it was a story. We beat Zalgiris Vilnius, sorry for the butcher, Shakhtar, Endi Mura and Dynamo Zagreb to secure the club's first ever appearance in the competition. Before that though, let's catch up with what we were doing over the summer. We had the semi-finals of the EA Sports Cup against Derry, in which we scored 8 goals before half-time, with Nikolaj Muller getting 5. The score would stay at 0 for the rest of the game, thank God for them, which would put us up against Bohemian with a chance to get our 3rd trophy of the season. As you can imagine, Muller opened the scoring for 5 minutes with a header from a Pierozzi cross, before repeating the move again to get his brace. Lopata would score a delightful volley from the corner to make it 3 and all but sealing the win. Bowes would get back into it for the Mora penalty, with him scoring his brace in the 90th minute, but it was too little too late, and we would win another trophy to keep the dream season going. The FAI Cup was also beginning around this time, and we would destroy Crumlin 10-2 and UCD 4-0 to set up a semi-final against, you guessed it, Shamrock. We would remain at a deadlock until the brink of half-time, with Edozie scoring a peach of a goal to put us up at the break. The second half would see Bueno score a lovely free kick, before Sam Greenwood would not score 1, not score 2, but score 3, sealing his hat-trick from the spot and leaving the game 5-0. Finally, let's get back into some league action. We would see our 2nd successive title win, with big wins against Derry, Bohemian, and a legendary win against Shelbourne. Our 95-point total would be enough to break the all-time points record in the league, with Nikolaj Muller destroying the goal record with a total of 41 goals, and Salah even breaking the assist record with 21 assists. Now, You're probably wondering how we got on in our first ever Champions League season. Well, I can say I was optimistic. If the draw was right, we could get third and go to the Europa League. But then the group draws came through. Man City, Barcelona, and Celtic. You've gotta be kidding me. Our first game would be at the Etihad against not Pep Guardiola's, but rather Thomas Tuchel's Man City side, which is hilarious because he just got sacked. Also worth noticing that they were the holders of this competition at the time, with all the usual culprits of Haaland, Foden, De Bruyne on the team. They would tear us apart almost immediately, with Haaland playing it through to Sterling, who slotted it home, followed by Mariba scoring a header 15 minutes in. However, just 3 minutes later, Salah would pick the ball up and play a sensational switch to Samuel Edozie, who would drive before cutting past Porro and cutting it past Ederson to score a delightful goal. We would go level through Sam Greenwood, striking an absolute belter just inside the box to tie up the game before half-time and give us a chance to take points from the European champions. However, it wasn't to be, as De Bruyne would slide it through to the current best player in Europe, who would slam it past Sammy to give City the win. Following that strong performance though, we were confident when Celtic arrived at the Aviva, and that confidence would be backed up as Muller would find the net after only 4 minutes. But within a minute of the restart, Celtic would be level, before taking the lead 3 minutes later. Perosi would equalise for us through a set play before Greenwood would put us in the lead. However, Celtic would level again with a fabulous strike on the brink of half-time, grabbing their 4th after the restart, leaving us on 0 points. We wouldn't go into the next game with as much confidence as the last, as we were now taking on Barcelona. But following the theme of early goals, Muller would score within the first few minutes, forcing a Barca error. Zuma would equalise from a set play, but we would take the lead again a few minutes later, with Perosi tapping a Muller header across the line. Barca would level again with a lovely free kick from Depay. But going into the second half, we would have a lead after Greenwood scored an incredible goal just inside the box. In the second half, Muller would extend our lead from a corner, with Barca scoring a consolation goal through Fati, which would mean we got our first Champions League win against Barcelona. The next game would be the reverse fixture at the Camp Nou, where we would score yet another early goal through Muller. But Depay seemingly took the last match personally and would score a hat-trick, handing Barca the win. Straight back to reality. With 3 points from 12, our group stage campaign wasn't looking good going into the City game. The match would start quietly, with Sterling having the only real chance of the half. But as the half came close, Muller got his customary goal before Haaland scored from the resulting kickoff, leaving it 1-1 at the break. The second half would see Muller score again, followed by Salah, before Kaikai got City's consolation goal, but that didn't matter. We'd beaten the European champions, and now we had a chance to advance to the knockouts. It would come down to the last game against Celtic, who were in second place just a point ahead of us. Within 10 minutes, Celtic started strong, hitting the crossbar before having an absolute belter disallowed for offside. Then Samboom would score from a corner, giving us the lead against the run of play. Celtic wouldn't be able to finish their chances, and we would make the most of it, with Muller putting us 2 up before the break. In the second half, we'd receive a red card, with Juego Bueno being sent off after receiving a second yellow, but Celtic couldn't make the most of it, having a goal disallowed before finally scoring in the 90th minute. This would cap off a crazy group stage campaign and send us through to the Champions League knockout stages at the first time of asking. We would also play in the FAI Cup final with a chance to retain another piece of silverware. The build-up would start with a 1-2 from Hubner and Boone before Muller dropped off, allowing Saversky to make an amazing switch to Perosi, who would drive to the byline before providing an amazing cross to Muller, who would score as usual. Just before half-time, Salah would swing one for Lapata to thump in, putting us 2-0 up at half-time. Just after the restart though, Sligo would get one back. However, just minutes later, a challenge on Perosi would see them get a red, leaving it up to us to make the most of it. And we would, as Captain Martin Saversky would extend the lead with a thumping effort from outside the box, before Lopata would head home his second header of the game to secure the win and retain another trophy. And to cap it all off, we retained the Irish Champions Cup, beating Linfield for the second season in a row. Overall, this would be a phenomenal season, doing the domestic sextuple. This would largely bring an end to the significant events that would take place during my time at St Patrick's Athletic. I would spend a further season and a half at the club, but nothing would live up to the previous events recapped this season. Now you're probably wondering what happened in that UCL knockout round we had just qualified for. Well, we drew Man United, and to be brief, we were absolutely destroyed, losing 9-1 over the course of the 2 legs, going to show that our group stage campaign had most definitely been an overperformance. This would be further proved in the group stage performance in the following season, in which we drew a much easier group with Porto, Monaco and Shakhtar. And yet we finished third with a measly 4 points, only qualifying for the Europa League, and that would set up a tie against Valencia, where we would lose over the 2 legs. We would retain all our trophies in Ireland once again, breaking even more records and matching our points total. And finally, in the end, we would claim one more Leinster Senior Cup against Shamrock Rovers in our final game as St. Pat's manager, leaving in the summer of 2027 after winning a total of 17 trophies at the club in our 4-year period from 2023 to 2027, including 3 league titles, 3 FAI Cups, 2 EA Sports Cups, 3 Leinster Senior Cups, 3 President's Cups, and 3 All-Ireland Championships. But alas, it was time to move on to a new challenge abroad, leaving behind a legacy to remember.